So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patty Hubbard, and I am the Outdoor Recreation Grant Planner for Missouri State Parks. And this is the 2025 Grant Application Workshop for the Environmental Review section of the application. Hopefully everyone was able to download the application and the open project selection process, which are the directions for this. If not, you can download the forms from the LWCF website. We do recommend that you use Adobe when downloading and completing the application, just because other applications tend not to work with our application. The free version does work very well. So during this presentation, I will be referring to pages within the Open Project Selection Process, or OPSP for short. Especially, we're going to concentrate in Appendix B, which is the Grant Application Guide. I'll give you page numbers, and then I will give you the Adobe page numbers in case you are following digitally along. This presentation will be covering the following sections of the application only, which is the environmental review section, which is questions 76 through 85. If you have any questions on any other section, you can send me an email, or once the workshops are posted, you can go back and refer to them, because this is the last workshop we are hosting today for the application. So let's talk about the application itself. It does look a little different from last year. There are a couple changes, so please make sure that you are filling out the 25 LWCF application. You'll want to make sure that after you get your scope of work set, that you are working on this section early, because some of these replies take about 30 days to get back from the other agencies. A complete application packet will need to be postmarked or arrived here by November 15th. Courtesy reviews are due to us by the 23rd. When you send in your final application, it needs to include 2 hard copies, plus all the supporting documentation. Before we dive into the application itself, we're going to be talking about why the LWCF grant is required to do an environmental review. It was acted in 1970. The National Environmental Protection Act, or NEPA for short, is a federal law that requires federal agencies to assess the environmental effect of their proposed actions/projects prior to making a decision to undertake that action or project. For the Land and Water Conservation Fund, federal NEPA approval is required because these are federal grant funds coming from the Department of Interior, the National Park Service. NEPA is often considered an umbrella law because it encompasses requirements that are included in a variety of other federal environmental laws. The purpose of the environmental review section of this application is for you to provide documentation of the impact of your project will have on the environment. This is a list of different types of resources that are evaluated during the NEPA process. As you can see, we're going to be looking at historical, archaeological, and cultural resources, threatened and endangered species, jurisdictional waterways, which include large lakes, rivers, streams, wetlands, and even disappearing streams. Water quality, we'll look at floodplains, air quality, hazardous waste, prime and unique farmland, and soil, low income and minority population, noise levels, recreation or user access, travel patterns, assurances of public and tribal involvement, and some others. A qualified specialist should be used in determining the impact of these resources. If a specialist is hired to complete the environmental section of the application only, it is eligible to be a pre-award cost for this grant. You must make sure to fill out question 74 and add it to question 75, which is the budget narrative. The tribal consultation is initiated and completed by the National Park Service, so please do not reach out to the tribes when you are doing this environmental review. Most LWCF projects are considered categorical exclusions, meaning that they are excluded from further review. The answers you provide in the application will help us and the national parks to make this determination. and the National Park Service are the ones who make the final determination and will declare that your project is a category exclusion. If they do not, then we will have to go in and we will do further assessments, environmental assessments. The first section of the application, question 1 through 18, asks you to provide general information about the parties included in this application process. The first 2 questions ask you to provide information about your organization. This should be filled out based on the entity that is applying for funds. Please use your mailing address and not just your street address, so that when I have to send out correspondence, it will make sure that it gets to you. Note that we no longer use the DUNS number. You will need to provide your 12-character alphanumeric ID from sam.gov. If you do not have this ID from sam.gov, you need to register now. It can take about a month in order to get through that process. Question 3 asks about the application preparer. This is the person who's preparing the application, and it does not have to be someone from your agency. So it can be someone that you hire to be your grant writer, or it can be your RPC. Costs to hire a grant writer are not eligible for LWCF reimbursement or to be used as match. If we have questions about the application, we will contact the person listed in question 3, plus they will also be the one who receives our feedback after the courtesy review. The person in question 4 will be the person who's going to manage the project, and this is the person we will contact if awarded to attend our mandatory workshop, plus they will be the one who will be submitting reimbursements and overseeing the construction. Question 5 through 8 asks for your federal and state representatives, including your regional planning commission. These are people that will be contacted if you receive an award. Question 9 through 11 asks you to provide information about your organization's background and prior performance with the Department of Natural Resources. This is the first section that is scored and is worth 10 points. Pursuant to 2 CFR 200, we are required to conduct a risk assessment of all applicants to ensure that we are being good stewardships of the taxpayer's dollar and that we are only awarding grants to entities that have the capacity to manage the project. The answers given in this section provide some of that information, but if you are selected to move into round 2 of the grant round, you will be asked to provide additional information, which will include your most recent audit, your accounting policies, and your procurement procedures. Make sure to answer this question based on the organization that is listed in question 1. So if you are the Park and Rec Department that is filling out this application, then this information should reflect your department and not the city as a whole, or vice versa. In question 11, please notice that we are asking you to provide performance history for all grants that you have received from the Department of Natural Resources and not just the LWCF program. Only talk about grants that you have received in the last 10 years. The environmental review survey starts on page 36 or Adobe page 59 of the application guide. Questions 76 through 85 comprises the environmental review section of the grant application. The tables provided in this section serve as a record of the environmental sources present at your site. Whether the proposed action is likely to have a significantly negative impact on the resources or whether further information is needed to determine that potential impact. Review the listed resources and identify any sources that may be significantly impacted by the action. Do not include short-term impacts as negative unless a federal permit is required to satisfy those impacts. The environmental review survey should be completed with professional input from resource experts and in consultation with relevant local, state, and federal governments as appropriate. Remember, the costs associated with hiring a firm or individual to complete your environmental review can be used as a pre-award cost. Just make sure to add it to your budget table, narrative, and question 74. Before you start to answer these questions, you need to determine what your area of potential effect, or APE, will be within the park. If this is a 1 to 3 acre park, the APE might be the entire park. If you have a large park and are only constructing in one area of the park, your APE will be smaller than the entire park. Within the APE, you should include the location of all construction activities, staging area for the equipment used, and the staging area for the equipment used in the project, and the location where any soils will be dumped within the park. On this slide are two examples of an APE. The top right shows that the entire park will be the APE, and staging will occur within the park. The left photo is a 15-acre park, and only the playground is being constructed with the project, so the APE and staging area are smaller than the entire park. This is an example of a large park, and construction will be taking place in two locations within the park. I have included a staging area for each of the construction sites. When you are creating the environmental review maps, some of the maps get a very close-up view. So you might need to have two different maps to show your APE, especially if you're working in two separate locations within a large park. You should just draw the two APEs on one map if possible. If not, include the two maps. The yellow lines that you see here represent the area that I would draw on the environmental map. That is the area that will be cleared during the environmental review. Remember, the bigger the area that you clear, the better it is. So once you have figured out your APE, you can start working on your environmental review section of the application. So question 76, this is table 1. For each resource, indicate if a positive or negative effect are anticipated to result from the action, or if further information is needed to make that determination. If this project will have no effect on the resource, please mark it as positive. If the resource is not located within your area, such as water, coastal barrier resources, or coastal zones, you can leave that one blank and do not mark it. You will then need to write a justification on how you made the determination of positive, negative, or unknown impact for each resources. This includes an explanation of how you determined if the project will have no effect on this resource. So if you've chosen that this will have no effect, I need to know how you made that determination. So an explanation is also needed. If you choose unknown impact, explain to us what other resources need to be done in order for you to make that determination. Note, if you mark too many negative impacts or unknown impacts within this table, the project probably will not qualify as a category exclusion, and you will be required to complete an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement if your project is recommended for funding. On pages 38 through 41 of the application guide, there are several links for the environmental review maps and websites that will help you with each environmental resources. All maps and correspondence with other agencies should be included with the supporting documentation. Now we are going to look at each individual resources, and I will explain to you kind of what we are looking for within here. So for air quality, most projects are exempt from air quality conformity requirements of the Clean Air Act, unless you are located within a regionally significant area as defined by 23 CFR 450.104, such as St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, or the Joplin metropolitan areas. If your project is within one of these areas, contact your metropolitan planning organization. The website link is on the slide or on page 38 or Adobe page 61 of the guide. There are also air quality standards for open burning. If you're going to be burning trees or vegetation during your project, you will need to get a permit from the Department of Natural Resources. Circulation and transportation. So here are some questions that maybe you can answer when you're filling this out. Are you adding parking and accessible routes to the park? Are you adding a trail to your park? Remember, you are required to have accessible routes for all facilities that are receiving grant funds to make to the ADA parking spaces. So doing all that makes it a very positive impact to your park. Climate. Look at how you answered question 71 and see if anything you listed in there is a positive impact for your project. Number 4, hazardous materials. You will need to visit the DNR Missouri eStart website and get a map. And I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a little bit. The next one is our endangered species. For this one, you will need a copy of your IPAC report, your D-key determination if required, and the Missouri Heritage Report, and all communications with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the Department of Conservation. And here in just a little bit, I'm going to show you how to pull those reports. Here's an example of the hazardous waste map. And I'm going to tell you this, when you guys are looking at these maps and these reports that I'm showing you on the screen, this is exactly what your maps and reports should look like. So if yours do not look like what you see here on the screen, then you need to go back and pull the maps that actually look like this. Okay. So when you go to the Missouri E website, type the park address into the search and hit enter. Zoom the map in so the entire park is located within the screen. If you zoom in too far and a table shows up at the bottom, zoom out one more and you'll be right where you need to be. Click the box next to the hazardous substance investment and regulatory petroleum and hazardous storage units. Give it a minute so that they can all populate. Do a screenshot or a snippet the entire map, including the legend. Convert the snippet into a PDF or a Word document and print it in color. Draw the APE on the map by hand, or you can draw it using, you can draw your APE using the tools within Adobe if you have that. This map must be included with supporting documents. If a symbol from the legend is within the project area or is very close to your project, so say it sits right on the outskirts of your APE, you would need to click on that symbol and then click on the summary page, and you should print off that summary page and include it with your supporting documents. Here's how to get your IPAC report. The link to the website is on page 39 or Adobe page 62 of the application guide. You will need to log into the site to get the report. So if you have not been on the site before, please set up an account. Once on the website, follow the steps on the left-hand side. So number 1, you're going to type in the address of the park and zoom in the map so that you can see the area of the park that your project is affecting. So your APE. Make sure to include that staging area too. If you have a small park, include the entire park. Larger areas are better than the smaller areas once again. If you have 2 areas, I would go ahead and draw one large polygon around the whole entire area on this. 2, use the polygon to draw the area around your project. Double click to stop drawing. Then 3, click on continue. When the next page opens, click define project. Then you will add the title which is question number 54 of the application, and the entire scope of work from 59, and the location of the park, which is from question 12, and then click save. On the next screen, click start review. A new screen will appear and click continue. When you get to step 1, click Yes. Request a species list. Then it will ask if you require an official species list. Click Yes. Then click Yes because federal funding is being used as part of this project. The federal agency is the National Park Service. Then it asks, does this project fall under any of the special projects? The answer is none. And then what type of organization are you working for directly? Select from the list the type. Then the next question, select there is another agency that is the lead. It will ask, are you the designated non-federal representative? Answer, no. What is your role? You are the applicant. And then fill in state and select the city agency. Then it will ask about the lead agency. Click federal agency and choose the National Park Service. Fill in your contact information. For the project type, you should select either recreation maintenance modification, or you will select recreation new construction. Click on Submit Official List. You will then need to wait a couple of minutes while the report is being generated. Once it is, the species list will be blue under the list request completed. Once you do, click open that PDF and download it and print it. The official species list will look like this. If there is a watermark across the paperwork that says not for consultation, you have not pulled the correct report and you need to go back and get the list. The IPAC report will be several pages and will list all the threatened and endangered species within your project area. You will also be able to see if you have any critical habitat within your area. Use this information to write a letter to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. A template for the letter is on page 20 and or Adobe page 43 of the guide. A letter must be written to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service if you have any species listed on the IPAC report, and especially if you are doing tree removal. If you have tree removal as part of your project, it should be listed in your scope of work, and you will need to make it a commitment not to remove trees except between November through the end of March. If you are removing a building, such as a restroom, you will need to make sure that you make that same commitment, and this is to protect the bats. So tree removal and restroom removal can only happen while the bats are hibernating. If you are not removing trees, just briefly state to U.S. Fish and Wildlife what your scope of work is for the project and list all the species from the IPAC report. Along with this letter to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, you should include a copy of your LWCF boundary map, a map that shows the APE and the staging area for the project, and mark any trees that will be removed, and the location map that is zoomed out to give address of the park, latitude, longitude, township, range, and section. The location map should also show if there are any caves within 1 to 2 mile radius. Creating the Missouri Heritage Report will follow a similar process. You will need to log into the website and drill the project area and fill in the information requested like you did for the IPAC report. Then they will send you the report via email. The report will look like this. Department of Conservation has 3 different levels that the report can be: a level 1, 2, or 3. Each level tells you who you need to contact for further consultation. You can use the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and edit it to make it for the Department of Conservation. Information about where to send a letter is provided in the report. And you can see that I've underlined where it tells you, and you will see these underlines in the report that tell you who you need to contact, whether you are a 2 or a 3. If you're a 1, you will not have to contact the Department of Conservation. So back to number 6 on our table. This is the environmental justice. You could evaluate if there are any environmental justice impacts because of this project. Use the links to the U.S. Census, My Community Explorer, or QuickFact website to compare your town to the surrounding county and state. The EPA Environmental Justice Screening and Mapping Tool can also be used to determine environmental justice. Unfortunately, I did not have the environmental screening or website when I put together the book, so it's not in the book, so it's only on this slide. So if you would like a copy of these slides, I'll be happy to send those to you. You just need to send me an email at the end of the presentation. So look at, when you're looking at your environmental justice, will this project benefit a minority or a low income population? Make sure to include all your research with the supporting documentation. So number 7, geological resources. Will this project change the scope of the land? How are you developing a rain garden to help control the runoff for your project? Number 8, the historical and cultural resources. As part of the environmental review process, you will need to initiate a Section 106 review with the State Historic Preservation Office, or SHPO for short. Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act requires federal agency to consider the effect on historic properties present in the projects they carry out, approve, or fund. The SHPO is the agency authorized for ensuring Section 106 compliance. To initiate a Section 106 compliance, submit a Section 106 review and compliance information form to SHPO. Directions for completing and submitting the form are found on their website. On the form, it will ask about federal involvement, and the answer is yes. And the federal agency is the National Park Service. You can leave the federal agency contact person's name, email, and phone number blank. In that next section, it will ask for contacts to CC. Please be sure to add my name, Patty Hubbard, with Missouri State Parks, and my email address in that column. You will also be required to submit topographic maps of the site, an APE map, the scope of work of the project, which comes from questions 57. This should also include project area size and depth you plan to dig into the soil, and photos of any existing structures. Upon receipt of this information, the SHPO has 30 days by law to review and send you comments. Once you have your scope of work nailed down, you should start this process. It will take 30 days to receive a response back from SHPO after they receive your packet via email. So one big difference now is that you guys can email this packet directly to SHPO, which helps start that 30-day clock quicker. But I do want to stress that if the SHPO determination letter is not in the application packet, the application is not a complete application and cannot be scored. So please work on this early. You should submit the SHPO packet as early as possible once you have a complete scope of work nailed down. Make sure that scope of work includes the accessible routes and the accessible parking. Do not wait until October to submit this form, or it may be too late to get a response back from SHPO. SHPO letters are good for a total of 3 years. So if you have not had a scope change from last year and you are applying again, then your SHPO letter is still good. Okay. Unless you added something to it, then you will need to go back and do a revised SHPO. But if everything is the same, then it is good. If the information that you provide to SHPO is significant to make a determination, The SHPO will send you a letter with their determination. Include a copy of the SHPO letter along with the entire 106 review packet that you submitted to SHPO as part of your supporting documentation. If the information you submitted is not significant to make a determination, SHPO will send you a letter requesting additional information or may require that a professional archaeological or architectural historical conduct a cultural or architectural survey. Coordinate with the SHPO on the requirements of the survey and completing a Section 106 survey memo form. Once the survey has been completed and reviewed by SHPO, indicate the determination results from the survey and attach the concurrence letter from SHPO and a copy of the survey. So if that's the survey they want, which is the cultural resource survey with shovel testing, that is also can be a pre-award cost for this grant. If your project has an adverse effect determination, further consultation between SHPO, your organization, and the grants management section may be required. And we will do that if you make it in, if your project is recommended for funding. So if after they do a survey, they still think there's more there, please do not do anything more. Just wait and we'll see if your project gets funded. And if it does get recommended for funding, then we will move it forward from there. Number 9, invasive species. Do you have invasive species within your park? Will this project be addressing about how you're going to remove them? You can check out the Missouri Department of Agriculture website for more information about invasive species and plants. So number 10, land use. Does the city or county have a land use plan for the park? Does the project fit within those land use plans? If you are on lease land, do you have at least 25 years left on that lease? Number 11, lightscapes. Is this project impacting any night sky areas? Are you replacing lights to be more energy efficient lights or ones that might be on a timer? Are you installing lights to help with security and safety of your park? So question number 12, migratory birds. Do you have migratory birds in your park? Are you removing trees where these birds might be nesting? Check out the U.S. Fish and Wildlife website link that is located on page 40 and 60 to see if you have any of these within your park or within your area. Recreational resources. Are you adding a new outdoor recreational opportunity to the park or city? The entire scope of your project should make a positive impact on recreation. So everyone here should be able to mark it as a positive thing. Social economics. So what are the economics of your project? Will the project increase any economic activity in your city? Are you maybe the only splash pad within, a 30-mile radius that people might be coming to your town now to enjoy the splash pad, and while they're there, they might do some other things. So are you possibly impacting the economy? Unique ecosystems. Oh, I'm sorry, sound. So will there be a significant change in sound because of your project, such as are you putting a shooting range in? Will that change the sound? If you're looking at just short, I'm not looking here for the short term of during the construction. We know during the construction there will be noise impacts. That is a short term issue and does not need to be done here. We're looking at once the project is completed, have you changed the sound that will be involved? And shooting ranges are probably your biggest change in sound. So unique or ecosystems, most everyone here should be able to leave this one blank because unless you happen to have a biosphere or a World Heritage Site, or you have an old growth forest within your project area, and then you would need to mark this accordingly. But for the majority of you guys, you can leave this one completely blank. Water quality and quantity. Identify how you are impacting water quality and quantity. Are you creating a splash pad that will be recirculating the water? Are you renovating a sports field to help reduce the standing water within your field? Water, coastal burial resources. Everyone should leave this one blank. No one here has coastal zones in their project area. Number 2, water, marina, and majority of you guys you will be leaving this blank if you are not working with a marina. If your project involves a marina, you will need to let us know if your project was eligible for the Dingell-Johnson or the Wolf-Brax Act funding. And you can take a look to see if you would have qualified for that, and we need to know. So water stream flow characteristics, check out the EPA stormwater discharges from construction activity website to learn more about permits that you might be required to have. Links can be found on page 41 or Adobe page 64. Will you be disturbing more than 1 acre of land with this project? Or is this a phased project and will all the phases combined disturb more than 1 acre? So if you're in phase 2 of this, most likely you probably already have your land disturbance permit. But if not, you need to go get one because you probably disturbed more than 1 acre. The link is there on the site. It's also in the book. And 2, when you're doing with land disturbance permits, you might also check with your county to see if they have a land disturbance permit that you would need to get to. Number 21, wetlands and floodplains. Both of these maps are required, and I'm going to show you on the next couple of slides how to pull each one of those maps. Then we have the soil and the prime farmland, and we're going to be showing that here in the next slides as well. So here we go with the wetland mapper. The link is to the website is located on page 41 or Adobe page 64 of the guide. Once you're on the website, click on the wetland mapper. In the top right-hand corner, click on Find Location and type the address of the park in the map. Once the map is pulled up, zoom in to make sure that you can see some of the surrounding area. Center the park in the middle of the screen. And on the top right corner, click Print. Type in the name of the project from question 54 of the application and click Print. You will need to wait a few minutes and then your print job should appear. Click on the blue Print Job. The PDF should open in another screen and click the download button at the top of the page. Save the map to your computer. This is what your map should look like. Print the map in color and draw the project area on the map either by hand or by using your drawer in Adobe. And make sure to include the entire APE within your drawing. If there are any wetlands from the legend marked within the project area or one that the project might affect because of soil discard from construction sites, you will need to contact the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to see if you will need a 404 permit. There's a template letter for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on page 21 of the guide or Adobe page 44. If you have a ravine or stream that is just outside of the project area, you should contact the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, or I'm sorry, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and make sure that your project runoff will not be affecting that ravine or stream. Number 25. Now we're going to look at the floodplain map. Remember, you will need this map also to answer question 18 of the application. The link to the website can be located on page 26 or Adobe page 49. Type in the address of the park and press search. Give it a few minutes and the park should appear on the map. Use the plus sign to zoom in on the map. If the red pin is not in the correct location, click on the red pin once and it will disappear. Then find your portion of the map and click on it and it will appear in the center. And then center that within your view. And then click on Dynamic Map and wait. A new screen will appear with a PDF of the park. Click the download button and save to your computer. If you see this yellow box at the top of the page, it indicates that these directions will not work. Instead, type an address as before and you will see a map. It will be zoomed way out. Directly above the map on the right-hand side, click on the map that says go to NFHL viewer. It will take you to a new screen and follow the directions on the screen to get a map and then download to your computer and print. Here's an example of what this map will look like. Print in color and hand draw on your APE. You can also use Adobe to draw it on there. If you had floodplain within the project area or just outside the project area, you should contact U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to see if you will need a permit. Remember, all correspondence between you and the federal agency should be included with the supporting documents. If this is the type of map that you can get, this is what it should look like. There are some areas in the state of Missouri that do not have this type of floodplain map, and you are going to get the black and white map. Okay, and that is perfectly okay. It's a little bit harder to find your project area on there, so do the best you can. But there are just some areas that have not had this floodplain map. So just so you know, for the wetland, the floodplain, your IPAC, and your Missouri Heritage, if those reports are older than 90 days, you will need to rerun them, okay? Especially your IPAC, because they have just updated the bats and they've added new species in Missouri. And the floodplain maps have been updated within the last 6 months. So if you have these from last year, please redo them and update them to get the most current version. Now we're going to look at soil and the farmland map. These maps are actually pulled off of the same website, and you pull them at the exact same time. If you have 2 or more separate project areas within the park, you are going to need to do this twice, okay? Because this one really zooms in on just that project area. The link to the website is located on page 41 and or Adobe page 64. If it does not open to the area of interest tab, just click on that at the top. Once there, open up the address tab and type the address of the park and click view. Click on the hand to move the park into the center of the screen. Use the plus and minus sign to zoom in and out to get your project area. Once you have zoomed into the project area, use the AOI button to draw around the project area. Double click to stop drawing. Once you double click, the screen will zoom in on your project area and you will have blue lines through it. If you don't get the area that you totally need, just click clear and go back and redraw it. If the blue lines are correct, then click on the soil map tab at the top of the page. A new screen will pull up and will show a soil breakdown. At the top right is a button that says printable version. Click on it. A new screen will appear. Click the download button and save the PDF to your file. This is an example of the soil map, and it will be 3 pages long. Print all 3 pages in color. The first one will be the soil map. The second page will have the legend, and the third page will have the map unit legend. So now you're going to go back to the top of your computer and you will see a tab that says that is the base soil and farmland map. Now you will want to click on the Soil Data Explorer tab. On the left side, open up Land Classification tab and click on Farmland Classification. Click on the View Rating, and this will once again take you to a new screen where you should download the PDF, the printable version. Once you get it, this is the example of your farmland map, and it will be 5 pages long. One will be the map, there will be 3 pages of legend, and one will have the farmland classification. Print all 5 pages in color and submit with your supporting documentation. If you have more than one project area, go back to the main page and click on the area of interest and clear the AOI, center the new project area on the map screen, and start the process all over again. So now we're going to look at question 77, which is table 2. This is a list of mandatory impact criteria that is precluded, that precludes the use of a category exclusion. If you answer yes or question mark for any of these mandatory criteria, you will be required to develop either an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement, irregardless of how you answer the table 1. So if you do any of one of these two, one of those two options will be done, and the National Park Service will let us know which version or which one you will need to complete. Question 78 asks if there have been any prior environmental reviews completed on this specific project, or if this site pursuant to a National Environmental Policy Act. If yes, please include a copy of the title page and summarize findings from the NEPA documents, and include the page number for reference to where the findings are located within the document. You can include the entire document if you'd like. The purpose of this question is to prevent us from reinventing the wheel and requesting survey work or other research that may have already been completed. Question 79 asks you to provide an explanation for any negative or unknown impacts identified in Table 1 of the Environmental Resource Survey, or any boxes marked yes in Table 2. Please be as specific as possible. Include any mitigation measures that are required from the federal or state agencies to protect the resources within your area. If you mark more than 3 boxes with negative impacts or unknown impacts, you will need to provide a separate sheet of paper to explain your answers. Question 80 asks you how the information identified in the table was derived and what sources of data were used to justify the impact. Explain how you arrived at the answers to your question. So you're going to be listing the maps and the websites that you used. If you had to send a letter to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife about your jurisdictional waters, then you would talk about how you sent them a letter and their response. All maps need to be included in the supporting documents. The floodplain map that you print for question 18 is the same one you're going to use for the environmental review packet, so you only need to include it once. Other environmental maps that you should include are the wetland map, the hazardous waste map, the NRCS map that identifies the presence or lack thereof unique and prime farmland, your species reports, your SHPO packet and its letter, any census data that you pull. This answer can be as simple as just listing the maps and the reports that you have pulled. Question 81 asks you to list who contributed to filling out the environmental review section. Please provide the name, title, and agency for all individuals contributing to filling out the environmental review section for your agency. So this does not include the individuals who you contacted at the different federal and state agencies. This is really for you to list who in your agency filled out this or who did you hire to fill out this section? Okay. Um, we can obviously see who from the state and the federal did it based on the letters that you submit. So this is who from your agency filled out this section. You would need to include what their qualifications were for filling this out, or what your qualifications were for filling this out. Remember, if you did have to hire a firm to do this, then that can be included as a pre-award cost. Question 82 asks you to provide a list of all federal, state, and local permit approvals needed for this proposal and explain their purpose and their status. So on page 42 through 43, or Adobe page 65 through 66 of the guide, are links to some of the more common permits that you may be required for your project. So once again, if you're disturbing more than an acre, then you're probably going to need a land disturbance permit. And you might actually need one from your county as well. So you need to check with them. You know, if you are affecting any water jurisdictional waterways, you may need a 404 permit. Do you need a building permit? All permits should be listed here on this site or in this question. Question 84 asks if a phase 1 cultural resource survey with shovel testing has been conducted within the project area. If no, then you will be describing any construction plan for this project. Include the surface area depth, and I want you to think kind of here like an archaeologist. So, is the area already disturbed? How deep will you be digging it? Even if it already is disturbed, how are you going deeper than what it is disturbed? You know, are you bringing heavy equipment onto the site? Do you need to bring soil in to fill in low-lying areas, or are you removing soil? And where are you going to be taking it? So, for example, if you have a playground with mulch sitting on the ground and you are replacing the mulch with pour and play, list how deep the pour and play will be dug into the ground and how deep the footings of the playground equipment will be. If you already have done a survey, you will mark the answer yes. You will include a complete copy of the survey. And then in this question, you will just summarize the findings and the page numbers for it. So whether you mark yes or no on here, there should be an answer written in this question. So if you mark it no and do not write your answer down below about how deep you're going to be digging, you have not completed this question. And that is probably one of the more common mistakes made, is that people mark no and then don't write anything down below. So you either marking yes or no, there will be an answer to this question. Now for the last page of the application, we have the supporting document checklist. The supporting document checklist is provided on the application as a guide for you to complete before you send in your packet. The supporting documents are required documentation to support your application and must be included with your application. For a detailed summary of each of the required items, go to the OPSP on pages 10 through 12 or Adobe page 33 through 35. As you are reading through your OPSP, please note that those purple highlighted words indicate that you are needing a supporting document for that question. In order for your application to be complete, you will need to provide the information in the checklist unless it says if applicable, and then you need to determine if it's applicable to you. So for example, if you are a school district, you will need to make sure you have the school community agreement. If you are a city, you will not need to have that one. The instructions also include a lot of template language for many of the items within the checklist. So your Missouri E-Verify is located on page 14 through 17 and Adobe page 37 through 40. And you will need to fill this out and return it. It's the only portion of the application that actually can be handwritten for your Missouri E-Verify. And it is the most missed supporting document that we get. Most people send us their federal and forget to include the state. So very important that you do the Missouri State E-Verify. We also have template language for the resolution, the financial assurance letter, the school community agreement, and your letters to Fish and Wildlife and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Remember that incomplete or handwritten applications cannot be scored. And you need to make sure you turn in a complete packet, which is 2 hard copies of the application. The certification of responsible person is the signature section. A responsible official of the agency is the person that is named in the resolution, and they must sign and date this in order for it to be a complete application. If it is not signed, then it is not a complete application and cannot be scored. Examples of responsible officials include mayor, city managers, administrator, park and rec directors, your chief financial officer. If you are a public school applying for funding, the superintendent must be the responsible official and the resolution must be passed by your school board. The responsible official does not have to be our contact person listed on the application, but they do need to have read it and understand the requirements of this grant program. The responsible officer cannot be an independent grant writer who is not affiliated with your agency. Unsigned or incomplete application packets are not eligible to be scored. Remember that the final applications must be postmarked or received by November 15th, 2024. Courtesy reviews are due to us by October 23rd. The courtesy reviews can be emailed to the email address that you see here. Final applications include 2 hard copies plus all the supporting documentation. Remember, I am also here to help you guys. So if you have questions or need assistance, please feel free to reach out or pick up the phone and give me a call. Remember, 1 courtesy review per application, just because I am the only one that will be doing the courtesy reviews this year.